Alors, rebonjour, je vais vous rappeler que si vous utilisez des téléphones cellulaires ou des appareils cellulaires, de les éteindre, s'il vous plaît, ou de les maintenir au mode de la vibration. Si vous croyez devoir sortir pendant le débat, veuillez vous asseoir à l'arrière, s'il vous plaît. Et quant à l'interprétation, si des gens qui débattent en ont besoin, vous pourrez aussi vous servir des appareils qui sont à votre disposition ici à l'avant. Alors voilà, on va aller chercher nos concurrents.
Ça va être l'équipe. C'est 24. Est-ce possible, s'il vous plaît, d'obtenir vos identifications d'équipe par numéro? Vous représentez le gouvernement? D'accord. Dans un premier temps, bienvenue aux deux équipes et bienvenue à tous pour cette grande finale du débat oratoire des Jeux du commerce de l'Université Laval 2016. Pour votre information, le gouvernement sera représenté par l'équipe 24 à notre gauche sur la scène et par conséquent, l'opposition sera représentée par l'équipe numéro 17 à votre droite. Sans plus attendre, je vous lis la résolution que le gouvernement doit défendre. Qu'il soit résolu que le gouvernement du Canada procède à la création d'un organisme fédéral de régulation et de surveillance des marchés financiers canadiens. Be it resolved that the Government of Canada creates a federal body to oversee and regulate Canadian financial markets. Ceci étant dit, je demande au premier ministre de venir s'adresser à la Chambre pour une période de 7 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. No one could have predicted the fact that Valiant Pharmaceuticals, a company within Canada that would end up buying dozens more across the near future, would end up having such devastating results for the entirety of Canada as a whole. And yet, after months, if not years, of attempt at regulation from provincial bodies, where we've eventually found out what they were doing with all of their acquisitions, hiding the falsehoods of their company that would end up bamboozling every single person who had bought their stock and causing them to lose all of their life savings, it was clear that our system had failed to work. And that's what we're dealing with in Canada today. Not provincial bodies that refuse to try to work, but ones that are overburdened by not just having to deal with the issues that happen within their own borders, but ones that happen across different provinces, across Canada, and in some cases, across nations. That is why we are so unbelievably proud to propose today's motion, that this House, be it resolved, the Government of Canada would create a federal body to oversee and regulate Canadian financial markets. Let's talk about exactly what that means before we get into what our themes and points for today's debate are. So this sort of body would essentially act as an overseer, talking about relevant laws and jurisdictions for anything from insider trading to fraud, volume trading, IPO formation, mergers, derivatives, stock trading, and other things that happen within the financial markets. But note that this body will focus on cases of international trade and any sort of transactions that happen across provinces or when jurisdiction is up for contention between the different provincial bodies, such as the Autorité des marchés financiers, that would continue to operate under our model. Understand that we do not want to get rid of these provincial bodies, and that it in fact is those bodies who would decide who would represent them within this federal body. What we want to do is make it easier on them so that they only have to deal with the cases that actually deal with, in that case, solely Quebec, and that this would deal with other provincial matters. In the end, we stand for three things on side government. First, for a better regulatory system that works best for Canadians. Second, a more accepting system when it comes to national organizations that want to expand throughout Canada. And most importantly, swift and powerful justice when it comes to the fraud cases that happen within our borders. So let's talk about exactly what that looks like with 3 points from myself and 1 from each of my colleagues. So first, understand that this principally falls under the purview of the federal government and in no way steps on the toes of the provinces. Why does this work? Because the Constitution tells us that the federal government has jurisdiction over international trade, monetary policy, and banking law. We're also fully aware that criminal cases, such as those that we would likely see in fraud, are already governed by the Crown. And what that means is that principally, it is absolutely consistent to say that it should be the federal government that has some jurisdiction over these laws. But note that in our model, we're very clear to try to keep the sovereignty of the different provinces in check, making sure that A, they are the ones that are continually coming to us, telling us their input and how they think these cases should be dealt with. But that B, when it comes to cases that fall solely within their jurisdiction, that they maintain that autonomy, which is hugely important when considering this case. So second, let's talk about the actual practical implications of this sort of bill and how we are eliminating the bureaucratic mess that currently exists within financial regulation in Canada. Now, we've already given the example of Valiant, but let's really talk about why that exists right now. Note that between fights over jurisdiction between different provincial bodies, as well as a lack of communication between those current provincial bodies, it's clear that they have a very tough time dealing with any cases that happen outside of their own jurisdiction. It's unclear what laws should be in place, who should actually do any sort of prosecuting, and that lack of communication means it takes us an extremely long time to actually deal with any cases of fraud across Canada, as opposed to the ones that just happen within, let's say, Quebec. So what's the impact when we actually have a financial regulatory body that decides which laws are in place and who should actually do the prosecuting? Well, first off, it means that we are far more responsive when it comes to our ability to attack those who try to hurt our financial system, that those who commit fraud are dealt with more swiftly, which means that fewer people are hurt. But note as well that it also means that things like the amount of evidence that we're able to use, such as in the Valiant case, become far easier when it is generally federal jurisdiction and we have to go through less red tape. If they want to say that we're increasing bureaucracy, I would say that that is completely false. That yes, we are adding one other governing body in this case, but if that makes business easier to do, as we're about to see in our third point, and in the end makes justice better and faster, I would say that that is far less bureaucracy in any sort of meaningful sense, and anything that anyone would say otherwise is a lie. Finally, understand that aside from shorter cases, we also get significantly more fruitful cases at the point that we are better able to prosecute people through a single federal regulatory body that, again, is able to clarify exactly what laws take place in any particular circumstance. So, for our third point today, let's talk about how this makes it easier for companies, because as we've said within our pillars, it's not just about trying to make this easier on the provincial regulatory bodies that already exist. We also want business to thrive within Canada, and we think that we do that best at the point that we clarify the rules for them. Because let's think about those national corporations who want to try to operate in multiple different provinces. In the status quo, they have to report to multiple different regulatory bodies, which makes it incredibly hard to do simple tasks such as have your books actually be be correct when it comes to accounting, correctly pay taxes, and even make projections as to how much money you're actually going to have in the coming year forward, knowing that something could go wrong. We think that at the point that those companies can now answer to one federal regulatory body that is clear about what sorts of laws they have to operate under and what their expectations are, we think that we get better companies for consumers, but we also get companies that are better able to operate throughout the entirety of Canada. That's going to lead to more investment across Canada going forward, and as my partners will explain, that is a very good thing for Canadian consumers writ large. What we can tell you at the end of this case is that there's just no excuse for not having this kind of federal regulatory body. This makes it easier on those who we want to regulate, but it also makes it easier on the regulators themselves, which is vital when actually dispensing the kind of justice that we want. And it is for all those reasons. It is for a more prosperous Canada, but also one that is better regulated and more efficiently regulated, that we are unbelievably proud to propose.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Maintenant, la parole va à la chef de l'opposition pour une période de 7 minutes.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today, the government is proposing to us what is really an omnibus bill here with the creation of a federal body to oversee and regulate our Canadian financial markets. They've talked about IPOs, laws, stock holding, international trades, volume trading, provinces. Every level of government is implicated here. This is quite an omnibus bill, and they've presented so much information like a tsunami, and unfortunately, a lot of things don't hold up. We'll go through the arguments on why the opposition is concerned with this bill and what it actually entails. Our first argument, efficient tools are already in place. We have a central bank. Our central bank regulates our interest rates, our monetary policy. The point of those safeguards is to actually be a safeguard if there are potential market variations. Let's give an example. During our 2008 crisis that hit the United States and Europe the hardest, Canada was surprisingly successful at getting itself out and back on its feet, even though, let's consider that 70% of our business is made with the United States, and Canada managed to be not hit very hard from that crisis. And so our safeguards do work, and we've had proof of that in different financial crises over the years. This brings us to our second argument, disrupting financial markets. Because safeguards are already in place, what we're doing here is we're actually creating a lot more bureaucracy and a lot more government intervention where it's not actually needed. So an example of a safeguard that stock markets use, so financial markets. If stocks drop drastically in the same day, the market closes for the day. That's a safeguard. We already have different measures to ensure that we control and regulate our economy. Government interventionism will make it even harder for companies to finance themselves through financial markets. This is creating a gridlock within all of this bureaucracy. We'll see a migration of our corporations leave Canada towards other international markets, loss of capital here, and also we're concerned at the opposition that this is going to affect entrepreneurship. The government has never explained to us how this is going to help smaller businesses that are trying to integrate our financial markets and are trying to expand through our Canadian financial markets, which are vital to our economy and are pivotal in our economy, Mr. Speaker. Now, our third argument is a conflict of interest. The opposition sees a big red flag with this omnibus bill. We're seeing things, the government is now going to have control over so many things, like we've mentioned and enumerated earlier. How are we going to assure that the government is actually not just going to just put it forward its own interests? Pension plan, treasurer's bond are in financial markets. How is the government going to ensure that they're not just going to advance their own interests or their friends' interests and actually think about markets as a whole and the interests of Canadians, the Canadian economy as a whole? This is also going to discourage other Canadian investors or foreign investors to invest in our markets. Now, we see at the opposition a blatant possibility for the government to rig the system because it has so much new control over so many things in the market. It goes completely against all free trade market ideas that we've had. Our fourth argument is over-controlled markets are actually a nuisance to our domestic economy. Now, we have to consider, Mr. Speaker, we in Canada are in a context of globalization. Even if we want to think that Canada can do what it wants and act in its own name, it's not the case. We have to understand that we are in a globalized market, and we have to consider what this type of bill is actually going to do, have like effect on that. We're going, stricter rules and disruption is actually going to cause a migration of foreign capital, a loss of foreign capital, and a migration of our domestic capital to more international markets where the markets are freer, less regulated, less strict. Let's take a simple example of that. In France has very, very strict regulations for their domestic economy and their financial markets, whereas the European regulations are much broader. And the European regulations work perfectly well. We have many, many examples of economies that are working, that are striving and quite successful in Europe. And France is unfortunately less competitive on a broader market, on an international market, because of the stricter regulation it faces on its domestic financial markets. We have a lot of concerns at the opposition. The concerns of the cost. What is the cost to set up this type of bill? We're already investing a lot of money. I will not take any questions. There's a cost. We're already investing in a lot of different independent governing bodies that already present safeguards on different levels for different things. How can we put together all these things and say that with one bill we can address so many issues like the government intends on proposing today? We already have safeguards to control in case of market crashes, and we have institutions and bodies that work independently, that make sure that we're not seeing any conflicts of interest like what the government is proposing today. We want to make sure that in Canada, we have efficient tools to make sure that our economy doesn't spiral out of control. But Mr. Speaker, we already have those tools, and they're already efficient. Like we've mentioned, we've survived different economic crises that have affected other countries very badly, and some of our primary economic partners, rather. This bill is only disrupting markets. It's only causing a gridlock within markets, more bureaucracy, more different levels, and it's putting together a lot of different things that should be addressed separately with reason by independent independent bodies like we already have. We already have bills, laws on securities. We already have laws on financial markets. Financial markets have their own protection authorities to make sure that they don't spiral out of control in case of drastic market drops. To sum up, Mr. Speaker, we've presented 5 arguments here that, at the opposition, we think are convincing enough to prove that this bill is completely, that doesn't serve its purpose at all and only makes things worse by combining a whole bunch of issues together in one bill. Firstly, already efficient tools in place. We have a central bank. Interest rates are regulated to encourage investment or discourage investment. We have safeguards that work. We have independent bodies that limit us of conflict of interest. Can the government prove to us today that it's not going to rig the system in its own interest, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.
Thank you. Merci à la chef de l'opposition. Maintenant, la parole se revient au premier représentant du gouvernement pour une période de 5 minutes.
Cher Monsieur le Président, membres du jury, distingués publics, distingués collègues à l'opposition, mes chers amis au gouvernement, il me fait grand plaisir aujourd'hui de vous présenter une motion à la suite de mon premier ministre pour aider justement à réguler le système canadien, comme on l'a dit, avoir un système mieux régulé, plus sécuritaire, des lois plus accueillantes pour les investissements à la fois nationaux et étrangers, et également plus de justice dans le cas de crime. Je présenterai un argument bien précis avant de passer à une réfutation précise des 5 arguments apportés par la chef de l'opposition. Mon argument s'appelle la diversification géographique de l'économie canadienne. Prenons l'exemple d'une corporation étrangère cherchant à investir au Canada ou étendre ses activités sur notre territoire. Sous le statu quo que nous visons à changer, la vaste majorité des activités financières canadiennes sont concentrées dans la grande région de Toronto, comme on le sait très bien. Les régulations ontariennes s'appliquent donc à toutes ces transactions. La situation est qu'aujourd'hui, ces normes sont justement la norme pour un investisseur, de sorte que les investissements dans d'autres provinces sont au mieux plus complexes et au pire complètement découragés, dû à la connaissance limitée des autres normes provinciales et régulations financières par les investisseurs étrangers et même canadiens qui viennent, par exemple, du Québec et voudraient investir, par exemple, au Manitoba. Cette dynamique néfaste crée des cercles vicieux de concentration de la richesse auxquels notre gouvernement veut aujourd'hui s'attaquer. C'est-à-dire que plus d'entreprises vont être dans une même région, plus ça va encourager, encore une fois, de l'investissement seulement dans cette région-là et non pas une diversification, ce que notre gouvernement veut. Avec une régulation à l'échelle nationale, nous offrons aux investisseurs étrangers, et même canadiens, comme je l'ai expliqué, une aisance bien supérieure d'investir dans les quatre coins de notre très beau pays, dans nos marchés très diversifiés, dans nos diverses ressources. En tant que gouvernement fédéral, il est de notre devoir absolu de favoriser le développement économique de l'ensemble de notre territoire et également d'encourager une meilleure communication économique entre les divers acteurs dans diverses provinces. Plus d'investissements rime également avec un accroissement de l'emploi, de la qualité de vie et de la population dans plusieurs régions qui se sentent très souvent rudoyées par notre gouvernement canadien, qu'on sent souvent favoriser la grande région de Toronto plutôt que d'autres régions périphériques. Je passerai maintenant à une réfutation très précise des 5 arguments apportés par la première ministre. On nous parle d'abord, et je reviendrai plus tard pourquoi est-ce que cet argument est contradictoire avec le reste de l'argumentaire de la chef de l'opposition. On nous parle que des outils efficaces de protection existent déjà en nous citant 2 exemples. D'abord, la politique fédérale monétaire et deuxièmement, les lois bancaires canadiennes qui nous ont protégés de la crise de 2008. Outre, ce n'est pas du tout des outils de protection financiers quand on parle de protection des marchés, protection, par exemple, des IPO, de protection sur les insider trading à la bourse. C'est vraiment, comme on l'a parlé, de la politique monétaire et de la protection des lois bancaires et non pas des lois de protection sur les marchés. Donc, il y a vraiment ici une confusion complète de la part de l'opposition. On parle qu'on va déranger les marchés en faisant ça. Or, on a très bien expliqué qu'au contraire, on veut simplifier les marchés en offrant aux investisseurs canadiens et étrangers une seule mesure quand ils veulent faire affaire avec le Canada. Et donc, justement, c'est absolument le contraire, comme mon collègue l'a très bien expliqué. Ce qu'on veut faire, c'est offrir moins de bureaucratie parce qu'on va pouvoir affaire avec une seule organisation quand on veut savoir comment faire de la finance au Canada. On parle ensuite que les investisseurs vont quitter le Canada. Je crois que mon point que je vous ai expliqué en grand détail explique très bien comment c'est absolument le contraire qui va se dérouler parce qu'on va attirer les investisseurs non seulement dans déjà notre région économique la plus prospère, mais également dans des nouveaux centres économiques qui vont pouvoir naître de ces nouvelles régulations. On nous dit aussi que le gouvernement pourrait jouer de ses intérêts dans les questions financières. Bon, d'abord, une question qui va aller au gouvernement. Il existe déjà des autorités comme l'Autorité des marchés financiers au Québec. Quelle est la différence vraiment dans le fait que les intérêts des provinces seraient mis de l'avant? Je dis ensuite, quel est le problème avec un gouvernement fédéral qui met les intérêts des Canadiens en avant? Un gouvernement fédéral qui, par ses régulations, veulent protéger les Canadiens contre la fraude. Ils veulent encourager l'économie dans l'entièreté du pays. N'est-ce pas ici le rôle du gouvernement que de favoriser les intérêts des Canadiens? J'aimerais que l'opposition nous parle de ceci. Et finalement, on nous parle des compagnies qui quittent les pays les plus régulés, tout en ayant cité, au début de l'argument, le fait que le Canada, grâce à ses meilleures régulations, a réussi à survivre à la crise de 2008. C'est une contradiction que le gouvernement que l'opposition doit absolument nous expliquer. On trouve ça absurde qu'on nous cite ces 2 exemples dans le même discours. Merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous. Maintenant, la parole revient au premier représentant de l'opposition pour une période de 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le gouvernement, en proposant une telle motion, me fait penser à cette personne soûle qui cherche ses clés sous le lampadaire, non parce qu'il pense les avoir perdues ici, mais uniquement parce que c'est le seul endroit où il y a de la lumière, Monsieur le Président. Je vais revenir sur la mise en œuvre du gouvernement, qui, je pense, et je l'espère, répondra à mes questions. Car oui, nous avons beaucoup de questions. Et si nous avons des questions, tous les Canadiens ont des questions. Nous demandons de la clarté. Tout d'abord, quand? Demain? Dans 1 heure? Après-demain? On ne sait pas, Monsieur le Président. Le futur pour les entreprises. Comment les entreprises pourront prévoir l'avenir, le futur, si elles ne savent pas quand est-ce que les nouvelles normes seront mises en œuvre? Des possibilités d'adaptation? Dans 20 ans? Dans 30 ans? En 2100? Combien? Quel budget? Qui payera? Qui payera? Qui payera, Monsieur le Président? Toujours les mêmes, oui, la classe la plus modeste, avec des taxes, des impôts, toujours pareil, Monsieur le Président, et des mesures mises en œuvre par les provinces. Indemnité ou non? Est-ce que le Québec, l'Ontario, la Colombie-Britannique se verra des mesures compensatoires pour de telles mesures? Se verront-elles remboursées pour les dépenses qu'elles ont faites pour implémenter leurs mesures? De nouvelles lois? Lesquelles, Monsieur le Président? Lesquelles, Monsieur le Président? On ne sait pas. On nous présente un nouvel organisme, sorti d'un chapeau de magicien. On nous présente de nouvelles lois? Non. En effet, on va rigidifier, on va rendre plus difficile l'accès des entreprises, des PME, des TPE, qui chaque année, qui chaque jour se battent pour créer des emplois. Oui, elles ne pourront plus accéder à ces marchés. Pourquoi? La raison est simple, elles n'auront pas le temps de s'ajuster à ces normes lourdes, compliquées, Monsieur le Président. C'est comme un boulet que se traîneront ces entreprises. Quid des organismes actuels? Que faire de l'autorité canadienne des valeurs mobilières? Envoyer une simple lettre et leur dire « Vous êtes licencié ?» Comment faire, Monsieur le Président? Comment faire? Et puis, comment procéderont à la nomination des nouveaux délégués, des nouveaux experts? On nous parle de nomination de nominés. En effet, c'est des nominés qui vont nominer d'autres nominés, mais qui peut-être nomineront d'autres nominés. Monsieur le Président, c'est une manipulation masquée. Voilà ce que c'est. Veulent-ils, je ne sais pas, nominer des nominés qui nomineront des familles, des amis, des manipulations de marché, comme les républiques démocratiques autoritaires, Monsieur le Président? Comptent-ils aussi intervenir dans la stratégie d'entreprise pour s'assurer que le chômage n'existe plus? Parce qu'ils ont la science infuse. Ce sont les génies, Monsieur le Président. Ils pensent pouvoir régler le chômage, la misère, la pauvreté, Monsieur le Président. Par ailleurs, comptent-ils vraiment jouer le rôle de justice et de policier à la fois? Que faire de la séparation des pouvoirs, Monsieur le Président? Comptent-ils jouer le rôle judiciaire, policier? Comptent-ils intervenir dans tous les scandales, étant donné que c'est un organisme fédéral, encore une fois, Monsieur le Président? Comptent-ils négocier avec les provinces? Comptent-ils bafouer le droit des provinces? Comptent-ils mettre en sourdine les provinces qui ont développé des organismes qui fonctionnent jusqu'à présent, qui montrent qu'ils ont fonctionné, Monsieur le Président? Pourquoi faire cela? Pourquoi la raison? Pourquoi? On veut passer actuellement d'un gouvernement fédéral à un gouvernement central qui s'occupe, qui regarde, qui légifère chez vous, qui légifère votre province, qui légifère votre entreprise, qui légifère vos actions et vos mouvements, Monsieur le Président. Voilà où nous allons avec une telle mesure. Par ailleurs, comptent-ils négocier avec tous les pays du monde? Ils veulent légiférer sur la finance internationale. Légiférer sur cette finance qui est-elle l'ennemi du gouvernement? Est-elle l'imposture pour le gouvernement? Est-elle la raison des échecs, Monsieur le Président? Monsieur le Président, c'est très simple. Aujourd'hui, nous avons un gouvernement qui se prend pour quelqu'un d'autre. Un gouvernement qui se croit le gouvernement du monde, qui pense avoir la science infuse, qui pense que le Père Noël existe et que le chômage pourra disparaître, Monsieur le Président. On a un gouvernement qui pense pouvoir tout résoudre grâce à la loi, Monsieur le Président. Non, nous devons aider chaque entreprise. Nous devons leur donner plus d'amplitude et plus de liberté pour arriver à un Canada avec plus de croissance. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le représentant de l'opposition. Alors, sans plus tarder, je laisse la parole au second représentant du gouvernement pour une période de 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, today we saw a speech from side government that showed a failure to engage in the principles behind all of our arguments. He concentrated solely on specifics, and the extremity of his rhetorical questions are really not in the spirit of this debate. We ultimately believe that the specifics at which he went to are not enough that we can deal with in our model. I'm going to try and deal with the questions that he asked, as many as I can within my speech, although I only have 5 minutes, so if he wants more, he can find me after the debate. Okay, so before I get into this, I'm going to go and bring in the last point for side government called checks and balances, which is in direct refutation to opposition's point, conflict of interest, which we heard in the first speaker. Okay, so what we see is ultimately that the provincial bodies do not do enough under the status quo. They do not take into consideration the overall well-being of Canada as a whole and are not completely objective when doing so. In particular, they're just like considering their provincial objectives. Ultimately, we need an overseeing body that will be completely objective. We don't see that this kind of conflict of interest exists at all within a government for 3 specific reasons. Okay, first, we don't necessarily see that like the government of Canada like having an interest in the overall like well-being of Canada being a bad thing. We ultimately see like this being a good thing for Canada as a whole. So why is it so important for Canada as a whole, right? It's because the government was elected for the people, by the people. If they have the interest of the majority at hand, we believe this to be an inherently good thing. Ultimately, thirdly, they will ensure that the policies and regulations at which the provinces are instituting are actually not in conflict of interest between provinces. They will ensure like a coherent and cohesive plan for Canada as a whole. We ultimately see this to be a beneficial thing, and we don't see like this kind of conflict of interest at all to be a negative. So let me just give you an example at which like a checks and balances would be a positive thing. So for example, if there's like an Alberta oil company that ultimately is like convicted of or seen to maybe have fraud, we see that like the Albertan regulatory body, it would not be in their best interest to disclose this fraud, although like because of the financial circumstances that they're in now, but that if we had a federal body that's checking and balancing the kinds of actions that they're taking, they are first of all more likely to like present this fraud, and then secondly, we're more likely to catch it. And so like, am I saying that this is going to happen? Am I saying that this is likely to happen? No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying that is, as a government, we need to take preemptive action now in order to ensure that like things like this don't happen in the future. We ultimately believe that greater checks and balances in the interest of the majority of Canada as a whole are ultimately beneficial for everyone. Okay, so now some thorough refutation of everything that we heard from side opposition, top to bottom. Okay, so first of all, they talked about the efficient tools in place. We have 2 things to say to this. First, there are not currently enough safeguards that work. And secondly, she brought up the example of the Bank of Canada, which I'd like to thank her for, because actually that's an example for our side that ultimately shows how a federal institution is actually beneficial in encouraging like better regulations and like a better Canada as a whole. We ultimately think like this is an example of a federal institution and federal safeguards are actually good. Provincial ones are not enough. Like we don't trust provinces to control interest rates or monetary policy. We trust the federal government to do so. We want these same kind of checks and balances at a federal level as well. I already dealt with her second point of conflict of interest. Then she talked about adding control. We ultimately do not see that we are going to be adding control. We are going to ensure that this kind of control that we already have within the provinces is at a federal level in order to ensure that it is coherent and efficient. We kept seeing this 4th point come on repetitively out of side opposition, which is who's going to pay for this. Now let me tell you, okay? So we have 3 things to say at this point. The first of all is, I tried to answer when she asked who's going to pay for this in a POI. She didn't let me. I'm going to do it for you now. We see that ultimately this kind of cost is going to cost very little to the government and to the provinces due to the fact that these kinds of regulatory bodies already exist. We're going to have some representatives, like friends of friends of friends of friends are not going to be elected. We have like the people in the provincial regulatory bodies that will be elected and then represent the provinces at the federal level. We secondly see that what actually is the waste of money is when we have provincial bodies that do not communicate, that are not efficient in the jobs that they do. We think that third of all, even if you don't believe me that this is going to cost tons of money, I'd like to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that good things are expensive, right? We're willing to invest in something if it's actually going to create the kinds of tangible benefits that we bring up on side government, and we've thoroughly shown you why this is going to happen. We stand for greater efficiency, greater economic diversification, and greater rule following, all of which fall on our side of the House. We think that if this costs a little bit of money, we're willing to invest ultimately, but we've shown you why both practically this will not cost money, and also principally, even if it does, we are okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Maintenant, la parole revient au deuxième représentant de l'opposition pour une période de 5 minutes.
Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement nous vient ici avec un tsunami verbal et vient nous traduire son envie de créer une nouvelle institution. Une nouvelle institution qui va faire exactement la même chose qu'une institution qui existe déjà, c'est-à-dire l'Autorité canadienne des valeurs mobilières. Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement entend ainsi commencer à dépenser l'argent des Canadiens comme si c'était l'argent qu'ils avaient gagné au loto. Alors, félicitations. Alors, Monsieur le Président, je veux juste rectifier d'abord pour le gouvernement qui nous a dit que le projet de loi qu'ils ont proposé n'a pas rapport du tout au marché financier et que nous sommes égarés sur leur chemin. Monsieur le Président, c'est totalement faux. Pourtant, les taux d'intérêt définis par les politiques monétaires, par la Banque centrale, ça va déterminer comment est-ce que l'entreprise va se financer. Est-ce que les entreprises vont choisir de se financer sur le marché financier? Est-ce que les entreprises vont choisir de se financer par des prêts bancaires? Est-ce que les entreprises vont choisir de se financer par des fonds personnels? Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement est totalement à gauche. Monsieur le Président, je vais prendre le soin de refuter les 4 arguments, les 4 semblants d'arguments que le gouvernement a présentés aujourd'hui. D'abord, le gouvernement nous a parlé de meilleurs systèmes de régulation. Monsieur le Président, nous avons déjà un système de contrôle fort, un système de contrôle reconnu à travers le monde. Et nous croyons que c'est pour cela que nous avons su résister aux différents aléas qui ont frappé le marché financier. Nous avons l'Autorité canadienne des valeurs mobilières qui définit les règles à suivre par une entreprise quand l'entreprise veut procéder à un premier appel public à l'épargne. Et il nous semble que cela, le gouvernement l'ignore totalement. Monsieur le Président, nous avons des institutions fortes dans ce pays qui régulent le système financier, qui dit comment ça marche. Alors, Monsieur le Président, tout cela pour vous dire que ce projet est nul, est inutile, parce que ce projet de loi vient avec une nouvelle institution, alors qu'il y a une institution qui fait le même travail. Nous ne savons pas comment ils vont faire. Peut-être c'est les entreprises chez eux qui vont réguler avec ça, mais il y a déjà une institution qui fait ça. Monsieur le Président, je vais passer au deuxième argument. Deuxième argument, le gouvernement nous a dit que c'est plus facile pour les entreprises de se financer. Sérieusement? Mais le gouvernement ignore toutes les notions économiques et financières. Monsieur le Président, nous allons dire qu'un marché beaucoup plus régulé, c'est un marché moins attractif. Et ce projet de loi qui va augmenter les contrôles sur le marché financier va rendre l'environnement financier canadien moins attractif. Et le résultat, c'est quoi? Nous allons perdre des investissements étrangers potentiels. Le résultat, c'est quoi? Nous allons perdre des investisseurs canadiens qui sont ici. La fuite de capitaux. Des entreprises qui devaient venir ici ne vont pas venir. Des entreprises qui sont ici vont avoir peur. Nous allons envoyer un message de peur à tous les investisseurs. Et qu'est-ce que ça va faire sur l'économie? Les entreprises vont partir ailleurs, perte d'emploi, chômage, perte de croissance, et voilà. Ils vont envoyer des milliers de Canadiens au chômage et ils s'en vantent que cela va aider les sociétés à se financer. Encore une fois, félicitations. Troisième argument, Monsieur le Président, ils ont dit qu'ils vont renforcer le système judiciaire en cas de fraude. Là, c'est totalement insensé. Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement ignore tout. les entreprises ont le choix de s'incorporer au niveau provincial et au niveau fédéral. Il y a la loi sur les valeurs mobilières, il y a la loi québécoise sur les actions, la loi québécoise sur les entreprises par action. Alors, je ne vois pas comment ça va. Ces deux lois font la même chose. Ces deux lois protègent le système en cas de fraude. La loi canadienne sur les valeurs mobilières dit que faire en cas de délit d'initié. La loi canadienne sur les valeurs mobilières dit que faire si un investisseur utilise des informations confidentielles. Qu'est-ce qu'ils vont faire? Ils vont aussi venir avec une nouvelle loi, réécrire la Constitution et tout ça. Félicitations encore. Monsieur le Président, en dernier lieu, le gouvernement nous a parlé de diversification géographique. Nous devons rappeler au gouvernement que nous ne pouvons pas forcer une entreprise à s'établir au Québec ou encore en Ontario ou encore au Manitoba. Nous sommes ici Canadiens. Une entreprise qui s'établit au Canada et dans l'intérêt de tous les Canadiens. Nous ne sommes pas là pour favoriser des Canadiens d'ici et des Canadiens d'ailleurs et des Canadiens à gauche et des Canadiens à droite. Et de plus, les entreprises ont le choix de s'incorporer sous les lois provinciales des entreprises par action ou sous la loi fédérale des entreprises par action. Et si elles s'incorporent sous la loi fédérale des entreprises par action, les entreprises peuvent travailler dans n'importe quelle province au Canada. Est-ce que c'est nécessaire? Est-ce que c'est nécessaire, leur projet de loi, de fonder une nouvelle institution qui va réguler ça? L'autorité canadienne des marchés financiers régule ça déjà et les entreprises peuvent faire ce qu'ils veulent. Alors, quand ils disent qu'ils vont diversifier géographiquement l'économie, ça n'a pas totalement rapport. Au contraire, Monsieur le Président, ça fait une ingérence dans les affaires provinciales. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci aux représentants de l'opposition. Alors, la parole revient au gouvernement. Pour clore la position gouvernementale, Monsieur le Premier ministre, vous avez 5 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I find it both frightening and embarrassing the amount of paranoia that exists on side opposition, granted mostly concentrated in its last two speakers. Understand that through the model that we clearly presented from the very beginning, and through 3 separate POIs that we desperately hoped that they would take so that they would better understand the model that we gave them, there is no chance for federal overreach, which they are so insistent about, and there are very easy specifics that we give you to explain all of the questions that they have. So I'm going to deal with the last speaker and generally go over the opposition case before explaining how, in the end, this is a clearly common sense bill that absolutely must go through for the financial health of Canada. So first, to address his biggest 2 points for the last speaker. He says at the very end that we cannot force diversification throughout Canada. We agree, and we're not trying to force it. What we are doing is making it more attractive and possible for companies to do that at the point that they are used to operating under the laws that places like Toronto operate under. Now they can use those same laws if necessary and if we deem it acceptable. We, of course, being all of the representatives from the provinces that we told you in my very first speech would be the ones who actually govern this thing, that as a result, more people would want to diversify and invest across Canada, which also deals with a lot of their paranoia about companies suddenly leaving Canada for absolutely no reason. Now, on that point, the second issue that they seem to have is that they seem to have prepped this case assuming we were going to say that we would advocate for more strict regulation, except we have never once said that. If anything, we have only talked about making investing easier through the simplification of the laws that govern our trading, especially in the financial markets. This does not mean anything is stricter. It literally just means it's simpler. If they can't deal with that, they have easily lost this debate. So then they talk about how we don't need this, which is odd because they've been talking about overreach this entire time, but we don't need this because we already have these laws in place. See the central bank. Except that the central bank doesn't deal with things like jurisdiction, which again, I bring up in my first point. I hope that they listen because they only have 5 minutes to deal with all of this in their last speech. They then ask questions like who's going to pay for it and when is it going to happen? I would say 2 things to this. First, we explain that this is going to cost extremely little since we already have all these resources. If anything, we're making it more efficient, as my partner explained, by pooling them together. But second, as far as when, I'll give you a timeline if you want. I could say 2 to 3 years. It doesn't matter. The point for this should be that we are operating on the principle of this debate, and it should be about whether or not a single federal organization is a good thing. If they're going to deal with the tiny, minute details of this, they have certainly lost this debate. Finally, they talk about how our safeguards currently work and therefore there is no reason for any more oversight. A, this is not an actual problem with this. This is just a reason why these oversights already exist. But B, you know who those oversights didn't work for? Volker Cotterell, a person who lost $6,000 due to his company committing financial fraud 2 years ago in rural Quebec. I tell you that he doesn't think that the safeguards work because they don't always work. They can always be perfected, and we tell you that we are helping perfect them at the point that we are making our justice system and our laws more efficient and more just overall. Let's talk about what this debate has come down to. We've explained on side government that you not only have a principal reason for the federal government stepping in this case, which they have never once contested, but we tell you that you eliminate the bureaucratic mess, which deals with many of their points already, but we also make it easier for companies that are already in Canada to operate across provincial lines. Furthermore, we've also told you why it's easier to get foreign investment across Canada at the point that it is more attractive for companies to do so, again, when the provinces choose, because this is the final sticking point that they just can't seem to get over. They are so scared about financial overreach that they say that we could never do this, except that in our very first model, we explained to you that this entire body is going to be made up of people who already work for the provinces and for the provincial people who are already dealing with these things. The difference is that now it's under one body, it's under one rule of law, and it has more communication to get this thing through. There is literally no chance for overreach here. In the end, what you get is greater communication between the provinces. You get this all at very little cost with no fear of overreach. We have dealt with two very different debates today. We have dealt with one that has been reasonable about trying to find the best way to deal with Canada's financial laws and its situations when we need to deal with them. We have had another debate which has used fear-mongering to try to make us think that the government is coming after us in no very specific way. In the end, if you have to value this debate on one thing, think about this. Nowhere within the opposition stance do we actually get any sense of the valuable harms that would come from this bill, because I don't think that there are any. Because in the end, this is only a way to simplify a system which should have been simplified a long time ago. For the sake of Canada's financial health, for the sake of its most vulnerable citizens, and for the sake of a better financial system, both now and in the future, we are so unbelievably proud to propose.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Et maintenant, pour le mot de la fin, je laisse la parole à la chef de l'opposition pour une période de 5 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now, yes, we think that, yes, debating a principle is a good idea, but on the other hand, let's not forget that, yes, we've been elected by Canadians for Canadians, and that's to pass bills and implement them. And right now, we have absolutely no implementation proposed by side government. First of all, Mr. Speaker, side government is mixing powers and jurisdictions from federal to provincial to things that aren't even controlled by neither of those. The government has a complete ignorance regarding the separation of competences between the provincial and the federal level, and that is disconcerting, Mr. Speaker. We have never heard any information from the government on how the government plans on proceeding. They've told us that they don't want to go into specifics. We don't need to go into specifics, but we need to know about the basic plan that they're trying to implement. They don't even have a plan. How will the provinces adapt? We've never heard them touch base on that, and that's a question we've asked. What will happen to current bodies that are governing, like our central bank, like our different authorities that already exist? We've never heard what will happen to them. We've never heard on the creation of a new authority, of a new panel of experts. This will only create discordance between the provinces. Is this what we really want at the federal government? Turning our backs on the provinces, Mr. Speaker? We don't think so at the opposition. Will there be a consensus or not? That's the big question that lays on the table. Government has never answered. Now, I'd like to go over a few of the arguments that were presented. The government, talked to us about how the central bank wasn't influential on financial markets, but it is because it controls interest rates. So it does. Also, we talk about different bodies and different safeguards that already exist. Some of them already exist. We have law on securities, laws on investor trading, Canadian Securities Commission. We have different safeguards already in place. The government has not proven to us how these are ineffective. They've only told us that maybe we can better them, all based on hypothetical hypotheses. Now, also, let's not forget the central bank is actually independent, so it's not controlled by the federal government. How can we be simpler? How can we simplify our system between the provinces and be working on different levels between federal and provincial and things that don't even do? We don't see the simplification here. And also, how can we simplify things if what we're talking about is rewriting all the laws that govern our financial markets? Is that simplification, Mr. Speaker? At the opposition, we think not. Now, the government has talked about new economic centers. They've never demonstrated how new economic centers will come from this new bill. They've only talked about regulating the existing market, saying that new economic centers will grow of this. How? We've never heard. The Autorité des marchés financiers has been presented many times in this debate, and for the opposition, this is an example of a functional, independent body that is working quite well in making sure that safeguards are in place for our financial markets. Now, the government has never proven to us how, in fact, the existing bodies are not capable of doing the job they're already set out to do and doing the job of what they are proposing today. They've never explained to us how. Now, what the government is proposing today is really just a ambitious, vague idea with no specific measures, with no plan, with just a little glimpse of an idea. But unfortunately, ambitious ideas are not necessarily good ideas. Mr. Speaker, if today you had the ambitious idea of going and jumping off a bridge, would it be a good idea? Not necessarily. What this debate really comes down to, Mr. Speaker, is you have on one side a government that really wants to do political diktat on their provinces, telling them how they should manage their financial markets, telling them how they should interact with other provinces across Canada, and how markets should be regulated based on total hypotheses of things that could happen. On the other side, you have an opposition that is thinking of all Canadians and is also thinking about our economic growth, our economic potential, making sure we don't enter in a gridlock, market gridlock with so much regulation like we've seen in other countries. We've already mentioned an example, like in France. On one side, you have a government that thinks that anything can be solved by centralizing federal government, but that's not how it works in Canada, Mr. Speaker. In Canada, we have provinces that already manage certain things of their financial markets, and like we've said numerous times, the government has never sought to find consensus between the provinces on this. Mr. Speaker, we don't want political diktat for Canadians. We want political justice. Thank you.
Mesdames et messieurs, les finalistes du tournoi de débat oratoire des Jeux du commerce 2016.
Those of you who are using the bus systems to go wherever you're going, you have about 1.5 minutes to go get your clothes and get going. They're not waiting. So 1.5